Hello, and welcome to the Venus Mystery Series. My name is Wednesday Palacios, and right now we are in a lockdown with the pandemic of the coronavirus. And it's a very strange time where nobody knows if they will be alive tomorrow, with thousands and thousands of people dying. I guess the only contribution that I have is my mystery series. And so what happened is I signed a deal with Audible to make recordings of the three books that I have existing: Venus with her head in the clouds, Venus on a rainy day, Venus at sunrise. However, there have been some production difficulties, and so what I decided to do, because apparently part of, I don't know, a lot of legal stuff, but I shouldn't be reading something from what's due to be recorded. So, spoiler alert, I have the beginning of book 4, Venus Under a Cold Rainbow. And that is exciting. Troubles. We need to go somewhere else other than where we are right now. Okay? So let's begin. It had been a long time since I thought about the $10,000 that was hidden in the air conditioning vent in my dining room. As crazy as it sounds, I have forgotten all about it. 7 months had passed since my lover Jill was murdered. It was January 1978 when I was sitting on my front porch steps in Venice Beach, watching the rain and drinking a tall glass of ginger ale. As a joke, my roommate Sylvia stuck a little paper umbrella in my glass to make it appear as though I was having a real drink. Pepper, her girlfriend, informed me, "We don't want you to feel left out when we're drinking cocktails." I gave them a stern, unamused look. Then I broke into laughter as I took a long pull on my non-alcoholic beverage. I swallowed and sighed loudly. "Delicious," I declared with satisfaction. Yesterday was rainy too. And when it stopped, I saw a rainbow across the boardwalk. I looked up as Pepper stood over me, her afro and gangly frame casting a shadow over me. She handed me a stack of mail and said, "All for you, Venus." I sifted through the mail's small stack of envelopes. There was the electric bill, the gas bill, the property tax bill, and a small white envelope with my address typed on it. No return address. I flipped it over, but there was no return address on the flip side either. With a shrug, I opened the envelope and found a piece of paper inside with the question, "Where's the money?" typed on it. My mouth fell open in shock, and I instinctively crumpled the paper. I looked over at my roommates, Pepper and Sylvia, but they were busy canoodling with each other and hadn't noticed a thing. I marveled at the level of sexual heat those two could stir up in such a brief period of time. Pepper, looking self-satisfied and mannish in her camouflage jumpsuit, stopped mid-kiss and asked, "You okay, buddy?" I faked a smile and said, "Never better." I was lying. Sylvia looked radiant with soft blonde curls down her back. She wore a filmy pink floor-length negligee, and she pulled Pepper's face back towards her seductively. She's just fine, said Sylvia in her charming southern drawl. I'd better leave you two lovebirds alone, I said. I took my drink and went inside and lay down on the sofa. I looked over at the vent, but I didn't want to get up and start unscrewing the grate. I had to think about it first. Who knew I had the money? Originally, I was going to use the money for a trip to Paris, but one day blended into another, and my Paris dream faded. I had even considered getting an exotic bird like the one that the cop on television had, but that seemed like too much of a disruption to my orderly life. The thought of trying to train a large bird, the seeds and the mess and all that made me decide to decline the idea. The money was now my focus. The money had been left behind after Jill died. It was left over from her secret role as the community pot dealer. That secret had cost her her life. It was really her dream to take me to Paris. We were going to rent an apartment in an artist's neighborhood and learn to paint. We would paint, make love, drink wine, and enjoy our lives. But considering the way things played out, it just seemed like a ridiculous dream. "Hey, what's up?" came a male voice from the door. It was my best friend, Hippie Harry. He let himself in and made himself at home in an overstuffed armchair opposite me. He was wearing bell-bottom jeans and a sleeveless white t-shirt. He had a black bandana tied around his gray blonde head, and he looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept well, or he had a very rough day. I made a mental note that crow's feet were starting to form at the corners of his eyes, and the skin under his chin was beginning to sag. But his eyes were bright and blue and sharp, and he had an awkward smile on his face. "What's wrong with you?" I asked. "My new neighbors are newlyweds. They just moved into the apartment next to mine," he explained. "What happened to old Mr. Simpson?" I asked. "He died," Hippie Harry replied, adding, "of natural causes. He was 86. I nodded slowly. "So the newlyweds must be very noisy, huh? A lot of love making?" Hippie Harry shook his head and explained, "No, it's the fighting and the banging of pots and the slamming of doors." I shook my head in sympathy. "Wow, that's a drag." "Well, you can camp out on the sofa if you like, but I've got problems of my own," I said, and I handed him the crumpled note. His eyes scanned the paper quickly, and he frowned, commenting, "Venus, this seems threatening. And what money?" "Let's eat," called Sylvia as she and Pepper came into the house. They were followed by our friends George and Mr. Fendall. Mr. Fendall, dressed in jeans and a button-down shirt, his afro neat with a fro pick sticking up in the back of his hair, carried a large bottle of soda. George, our diminutive Fijian friend, with calm, almond-shaped eyes and dark brown skin, carried a bucket of fried chicken. "I'll get the paper plates and the napkins," volunteered Pepper. "Oh, good," I said. "It'll be like a picnic." "What money?" Hippie Harry insisted. "Money?" Sylvia repeated. "Where's Bobby?" I asked George. Bobby, affectionately known as Big Surfer Bobby, was the chef at my restaurant. He was big, blonde, and never missed a good wave or a good meal. He would have loved this meal. George and he were best friends who rarely spent time apart. Bobby is working on a secret recipe, replied George, with a devilish grin. I frowned. The same one he's been working on for the past week? Mr. Findall asked. Oh, he gets like this, I explained. He must be close to a breakthrough. Hippie Harry crossed the room and plopped down at the dining room table with an exasperated sigh. What money? He repeated. Okay, I said, as I sat down next to him. I might as well tell you all. My friends' faces were masked with degrees of concern. It seemed as if everyone was holding his breath. Remember when Jill died and we were trying to determine who killed her? Well, Jill had apparently been saving money to take me to Paris. I found a stash of money during our investigation, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I hid it. The problem is, the money came from her marijuana sales. It was dirty money, I explained. Hippie Harry took a drumstick from the bucket, stared at it for a moment, then bit into it hungrily. Sylvia sucked in her breath dramatically and commented, Somebody knows. And they want that money, agreed Pepper. This could be dangerous, said George. People kill for money, Mr. Findall observed aloud. I looked around the table at my friends. I said, the only people who know about this are the people in this room. This is where it stays. You're going to need protection, said George. He took a huge helping of coleslaw and placed it next to his chicken. I sighed, making a sad, hollow sound. I don't want to be a prisoner, I protested. Every time we have an investigation, you guys wind up taking turns watching me. Should I take this to mean that you're sick of us? Asked Hippie Harry sarcastically. More importantly, should we take this to mean that there is something worth investigating? Mr. Findall corrected him. I shook my head and began helping myself to the feast. The doorbell rang. Mr. Findall leaned back in his chair, pulled the door open, and Brooke Madison entered the room. Brooke entering a room was always a little bit of an event. I had never met anyone who filled the room with the smell of flowers when they walked in. She was a beautiful girl with long red hair and blue eyes, and everybody thought I was sleeping with her. Nothing could be further from the truth. Ever since I danced with her on New Year's Eve, I haven't been able to dissuade anyone from believing that we were an item. But I never touched the girl. Hi, everybody, she said with a bright smile, blushing slightly. She was wearing a long blue dress that gathered at her tiny waist and fell gracefully at her slender, sandaled feet. Would you like to join us for dinner? I asked. She instantly replied, Oh, yes. I knew George was secretly enamored with her, and he seemed mesmerized when she sat next to him, his eyes transfixed on her as she helped herself to chicken, mashed potatoes, and coleslaw. Hippie Harry regarded George with amusement, and finally he burst into laughter. Pepper and Sylvia were soon unable to resist the temptation to laugh, and eventually neither was I. We all began laughing until no one could eat or hold a fork. Well, that's just the beginning. I think we should continue at a later date. It's been wild. Hey, hang loose in peace.